Hello and welcome to SPSS tutorial number 1. And I'm hoping I can make this some kind of series of tutorials because I'm actually learning the software myself, and as I learn things I like to check my knowledge, and the best way to do it is just to teach it. So yeah, in this tutorial we're going to do variables. I'm going to show you how to do frequencies and the measures of central tendency like mean, median, mode. We're going to do histograms and we're going to do correlations. And as a bonus, I'm also going to show you how to put random numbers into your spreadsheet. Because, for example, you might just be running like a test or just like an exercise so you can practice the software. And instead of having to actually type in a bunch of random numbers yourself, you can have SPSS do it for you. So the first thing we're going to do, we have a blank spreadsheet here. So I don't have any data here. So the first thing we're going to need to do actually is just have some variables. So let's click on variable view at the bottom. Okay, so this is how you define variables. For our exercise, let's just say we're teachers and we have a class of 30 students, and we gave them, let's just say we gave them a bunch of tests and then we gave them a final. And the maximum score they could have got on any of those tests was 100. The lowest they could have got is 0. So let's go ahead and start with our categories here. So the first one is going to be the student's ID. So I'm just going to put ID here. Now notice I didn't put student ID. Watch what happens when I try to do that. Student ID. Yeah. Variable name contains an illegal character. In this case, it was a space. So SPSS doesn't like spaces in the variable names. So just try to keep the variable names really short and concise. So here I'm just going to call it ID. And over here, I'm going to come back to this stuff in a second. So type in ID here, and then for label, and then look at that, like magic, it gives you all the rest of the stuff, right? Now go to label, double click on that, and here I'm going to type student ID. Now label can be anything you want. I can type, all kinds of crazy stuff in here, and you know what I mean? It really doesn't matter. SPSS is perfectly fine with it. This is because labels are good for reporting the data. Like when I produce these graphs, you'll see the label will be displayed, not the name of the variable. So this is handy. Like if you had a questionnaire, you could put like Q1 in here for the name of the variable, right? And then over here in the label, you can type the whole question out so that when you report the statistic, it'll show the question so people can, they'll be able to read it easier. They might not know what Q1 means, right? So yeah, that's that. And you can resize these as big as or small as you want them. You just want to keep it around there. So yeah. Now ID is just going to be a number, so we're going to leave the type alone. We won't have any decimals, however, because it's just an ID number. It's going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So we're going to leave that alone. And let's see, measure. Let's click on measure. We have three different types of measures here. Scale is just like it sounds. If the variable, if there's a measurable difference between like a low score and a high score, or a low number and a high number, let's say you had like a 1 and then a 50, that will be a scale. if you can actually measure the difference between those numbers, and if it was significant, if there was a difference between a 1 and a 50. Nominal, which is what we're going to use for this variable, means that there is no difference between ID 1 and ID 200. You know what I mean? It's just a number that we use to designate students. You know what I mean? So we can say, okay, he's the first student, he's the the 50th student. So it's not there's no order to it. And ordinal is if there is some order to it, but it's not a scaled order. In other words, ordinal is if it's like short, tall. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of arbitrary, like what is short, what is tall. You can't really do any math with that, but there is an order to it. So for this, let's just click on nominal. And yeah, I think we're done here. We're not going to worry about values and missing just yet. I think I'll explain this in the coming variables. So now that we have this one done, I'm going to go ahead and make a new variable. This one is going to be called T1. So this is test 1. So here I'm just going to type test 1 score. Now, just to keep it simple, we're not going to use decimals for this either. Let's just say it was a multiple choice question test. So they couldn't have got half credit or nothing like that for any answer. It was either right or wrong. And there were 100 questions, right? So we're going to make that 0 decimals again. And here, this is going to be a scale. Now, I could be wrong. I'll be honest with you. I could be wrong. But we're just going to say a scale for now because the lowest you can get is 0. The highest you can get is 100. I think SPSS has a function on here that'll analyze your variables for you based on the data that you put in. And it'll tell you what it thinks. It'll say, well, hey, we think this should be an ordinal variable, or we think this should be a nominal variable. And sometimes it can be a little wrong, I guess, or at least in my opinion. I think it's wrong sometimes because I think this would honestly be a scaled variable. I ran this example before, and I actually got it. SPSS told me it was an ordinal variable, or it was nominal. I'm like, what? it's a test score. You know what I mean? There's a big difference between like a 90 and a 20. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, so yeah, we're just gonna say it's scale. I might make another video later and go into this a little in more depth, like the different types of measures. But for now, let's just leave it alone. Yeah, so that's test 1. Oh, and I guess I should go into this right here. Okay, so let's say the lowest score you can get is a 0, right? Now, we would just fail the student. We just give them a 0, right? But let's say for data purposes, we want to know if somebody missed the test, like they weren't even there to take it, right? What score do you give them? So we would give them a 0, right? But in SPSS, we wanted to account for that in a more, I guess, statistical way. So, so what we would do here, first of all, you want to click on values. So click on values. And then this little button here, click that. Okay. So what I want to say is, if somebody didn't take the test, like they weren't even there, in SPSS, I'm going to account for that by putting in -1. And down here in label, I'm going to say no data. Then click add, and then you're going to see it over here. Then I'm going to click OK. Now all this means is when I enter -1 into my data view down here, when I do that, there's a special button. Actually, it's this button. It's grayed out here because it doesn't do nothing here. But when I go to data view, it actually will show the meaning of the value, like basically whatever you type in here. So wherever it sees -1, if I click this, it'll say no data. So it's just kind of a way to keep track of it. So that's all this is. It's just a way for you, the person doing the statistics, to keep track of what the values mean, if they mean anything. Like if I was doing states, right, and I had like 1 through 50, and you know, I said, well, geez, what was the first state again? You know, I forgot. So here I would do something like 1 is, I don't know, Alabama? Is that the, or yeah, I think Alabama is the first, well, alphabetically, right? So wherever I saw 1, I could just click this and it would say Alabama instead of 1. So it's just the easier way to keep track of it if you're trying to make your study quantitative, or if you're just, you know, using numbers and stuff like that. But we're not worried about that here, but I just wanted to explain what this meant. Now, SPSS still doesn't know that -1 means missing, though. That's just for us. So I have to make sure SPSS understands that. If this was like the states example again, SPSS doesn't care if 1 is Alabama or all of that, but it needs to know if, you know, what is missing. How do I know if something's missing? So here, I'm going to click this again, and I'm going to make that a discrete value, -1. Now I'm going to click OK. So that's all that means. It means when you see -1 SPSS, that's is something missing there. Don't account for that. You know, when we produce our statistics, when we run our data analysis and stuff like that, if it sees -1, it'll tell us how many scores were missing when it was running all those calculations, like mean and standard deviation and stuff like that. So yeah, and this of course is going to be scale, as I said before. So yeah, now check this out. I don't want to have to do all of that again, because all these tests are pretty much going to be the same format. So what I'm going to do is just right click here and click copy. So you want to right click on the 2 here, and then I'm going to go here and I'm going to click paste. Now you see it copied all of the properties of the previous variable, of this variable. All I have to do now is just change the name. This is going to be T2. So test 2. So make sure you change this too. These you don't need to change because these are all pretty much the same. And then I'm going to copy that. Well, really, you could have just pasted what you had before, but here I'm going to call this mid, and this is going to be midterm score. And then let's do 2 more pastes. Let's do 1 more paste. Yeah, 2 more. Yeah, sorry. All right, so this is going to be T3 test 3 score, and this is going to be final score. Okay, so we have all of our tests, right? Okay, now let's go to data view. Ooh, look at that. ID, T1, T2, mid, T3, and final. So you see it corresponds, whatever you do here corresponds with what you got in data view. That's pretty cool, huh? All right, let's put some students in. So let's just put some numbers in. I could put in, remember I told you about the states, like if I put 1 is Alabama and stuff like that. If I have a class of like 30 students and it's hard for me to remember who's number what, like who's number 5, who's number 26 again, that's where this will come in handy. So for ID, I would go to values and I would do something like, I'm not going to do all of them, but I'll do a few. So let's just say 1 was Johnny, and let's say 2 was Chun-Li, and 3 was Guile, 4 is Zangief. I think I spelled his name right. Alright, now just click OK. So let's go to data view, and here I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Press enter to go to the next row, and tab is to go to the next column. So it's just a quicker way so you don't actually have to click on every single cell. So watch this. This is what I was talking about before. Now it's just a number here, right? You're like, well, who's number 1 again? Click on this button, and boom, there it is. So it's like a toggle. It's like a switch. Like you can go back and forth. Now the beautiful thing about that is this won't be published. So when I produce these statistics, even if I did produce, even if I did print the IDs, it wouldn't print the labels, or the values I should say. So it will never actually print these. This will get printed, but not this. And that's really important to keep in mind. So go ahead, you know, when you're doing statistics, you really don't want to use people's names, right? Like, because it's supposed to be confidential most of the time. But go ahead and do it here if you're just trying to keep track of who's who, right? You want to keep their names. And I know in Excel, I don't think in Excel you can do that. And that's kind of an advantage of SPSS, is that it's easier to keep track of people this way. In Excel, you would have to just go back and erase this stuff, or you probably have some other like sheet of paper where you could like cross-reference numbers and names. But anyway, let's just go ahead and finish. So I'm gonna turn that off, and then let's go 7. I'm gonna do 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you go ahead and do it while I'm doing it. And And this is actually the most boring part about working with spreadsheet software is data entry, especially when you got a lot of it. But that's why we're only doing 30 students. So yeah, I think that's. Looks like I missed something somewhere. Oh, I missed 8. So what I'm gonna do here is copy or cut actually, and then I'm gonna paste here, and then I'm gonna put 8 here, there. So yeah, you learn all kind of tricks just playing with just play with it. That's how I'm learning it. I'm just playing around with it. And they also have tutorials and all kinds of stuff. This is a tutorial. So anyway, all right. So we have our students. We need test scores. And I could go in there. I could just go in here and like type in random scores, right? And it would just be a pain, and that this would be invalid anyway because I'm going from 0 to 100. So what I'm going to do now is, remember that I told you I was going to have like a little bonus. I was going to show you how to do random numbers. So this is how you do random numbers in SPSS. What you do is you go up here to transform, then you go down, you go down to random number generators. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set the generator basically. If you don't know a lot about how random numbers are generated, like discrete math formulas and all that kind of stuff, don't worry about it. It's really not it's really not important for you to know how this thing comes up with random numbers. This is just basically just follow me. So click here, set active generator, and then click here to set random point, and then after that just click OK. If you're really interested in random numbers, I'll just tell you right now, there's really no such thing as random numbers. There's pseudo-random, and it's all based on a seed. So all we did right there was just set a seed. And from that seed, and I think it's usually based on the computer's internal clock, because it's such a unique number. Like it'll never be 9:02 p.m., 9/12/2012 ever again for the history of time, right? So yeah, anyway, so we set our seed, we activated the generator, right? So go up to transform again, go to compute variable, click that. All right, this is where the magic happens. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this stuff. Yours should just be blank. And what we're gonna do here is we want to target T1, right? This is basically just like a scientific calculator. You can do some like really simple programming, like some scripting in here. So that's basically what we're about to do. So T1, we want to just populate this entire variable with numbers between 0 and 100. So what we're gonna do here is go click on this this little bar thing right here. Scroll down to random numbers, and then you'll see a bunch of these functions down here. Now there's a lot of different ways you can generate a random number, right? We want to do it basically the most normal way. So just go down to RV uniform, right? And then click this arrow here. And there it is. Now if you didn't, you could also just type that stuff in. You can type up here. So if it's faster for you to just type RV uniform, just go ahead and do that. But okay, so this thing takes 2 inputs. So we're gonna say between 0 and, now check this out, 101. Why did I do that? Because it's not inclusive. It goes from 0 to 100. And that's it. So if I put 101, it's telling the thing to go from 0 to 100. Don't go up to 101. But another thing that we want to do is, I think this thing actually gives you all the values that it possibly can up to some decimal point from 0 to 100. We don't want decimals. We don't want like 5.6278 blah 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 blah. You know, we don't want that kind of stuff. We just want integers. So what you want to do here is go to arithmetic up here, and then go down here to trunk 1, because we just want to truncate it with one, basically just one input. That's all that means. And the one input here is just whatever number this spits out. So yeah, just click trunk 1 and then this arrow. Now you see it put it after that. It's asking, okay, truncate what? We want to truncate this. So cut that and paste it in there. There you go. Now once again, you can just type that in. You don't have to go searching for it. Just don't forget your parentheses. So that's the expression that we're going to use to generate random numbers in T1 between 0 and 100. So this is just a simple way for you to, now it's not, I would only use this for examples, like, I mean, this is really the only time you would use it anyway, but if you really had a actual class, it probably won't be that random how the scores are distributed, right? Like, if you're a good teacher, then you probably get good scores, right? Especially if they've already had some of this stuff before, you know what I mean? So, yeah, but this is just for us. So let's just go ahead and, oh, I gotta go ahead and do this. Don't mind me here. We're gonna do this stuff in a minute. This is from when I was working on it myself. So just make sure this thing says if, and then after it says optional case selection condition. So yeah, everything, just make sure it looks like what I have here. Then click OK. And it's asking, do you want to change existing variable? Just say, yep, okay. And there you go. Oh, this thing, I forgot to mention this. This is just the output terminal. So this thing just tells you, hey, this is what I just did. You know, I'm waiting for my next instruction. It's just kind of SPSS talking to you. It's also the terminal or the output window that our graphs and our the output from these functions that we're going to run, like correlations and stuff, it's all going to show up here. Kind of nice and neat for you. I think Excel actually just opened up new spreadsheets. This thing just has its own dedicated sort of output window for that. But anyway, it's just something to keep in handy. Don't X this out, just keep it open so that we can always have access to it. So let's go back, and there you go. Those are random scores. Yeah, somebody did pretty good, whoever number 9 is. If I had my data labels, oops, if I had my data labels here, I'd be able to tell. But yeah, so this is pretty random, I guess. And if you don't like that, you can always just repeat it, just by going through the same thing again. Just go to transform compute variable, and then click OK here. Make sure this is T1, and it'll just do it again, and you can just keep running it until you're satisfied with what you got. So we got the first test. Now we're going to do the second test. I'm not changing anything else. I'm just going to put T2 here. Now don't forget, you have to put the variable name in here. Don't put the label name here. So down here you see test 2 score, right? That's not what we want in there. We want T2. So now you click OK. Change existing variable. OK. And look at that. Whoa, that's an improvement right there. 39 to 99. He must have studied hard, or she, or it. I don't know. This person, what the heck? All right. Anyway, maybe they fell asleep or something during the test. Anyway, yeah. So let's go ahead and do it again. This time we're gonna do teeth. Well, actually, we're gonna do mid. It's for the midterm. All right. Now let's do the T3 and the final. Okay. And you know what? Let's do something cool for the final. Let's say the final test was cumulative, right? It had all the stuff from the whole course. And let's say I really just want the final to be the average of all these tests plus, I don't know, 5, right? And since nobody is going to get 100 for an average, I won't break anything. I don't even think nobody's going to get a 95 for an average. If they do, then we can go in there and tweak it. But yeah, let's just go ahead and say the final is an average for all these tests plus 5. So we're going to give them 5 bonus points or something like that. So here I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of math. So we're going to keep this, we're going to keep that truncate part. And here all we're going to do is we're going to go over here to statistical and then mean. Otherwise you can just type in mean. But here it's saying mean of what, right? I'm going to say mean of, now you can, it's asking just for 2 inputs. But as you can see here, you can put as many inputs as you want in there because it's just going to average all the variables that you put in there. Or all the numbers or whatever. Anything you put in here is going to try to average it. So here I want to average T1, T2, T3, oh I'm sorry, mid, and T3. Okay. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to add 5. That's it. Let's try it. We're going to call this final. So that's going to be final. All right. There you go. I think that worked out pretty well. So you see all it did was it took the average or mean of these and it just added 5 to it. Yeah, all right. So there you go. Now what I want to do next is I want to see what the average was of all of these scores. Like I want to know what grade would they have gotten in the class if we didn't ever give them homework, if all the you know, if the class grade, the course grade was based on their average of all of these tests. So I have 2 ways I can do this. One is I can start making my variable here. I can call it average, or I can just do it from compute variable. So let's do that. Here I'm going to type in AVG. That's what we're going to call the variable. Now this is a new variable. And what I'm going to do here is actually, it's just going to look like this. That's it. All it is I'm saying give me the mean of all of these and truncate it. Sometimes you might not want to truncate it, you might want to round it, you know, because it is going to be an average. Like you want to round up, right? But just for the sake of this example, let's just use truncate. And because round is actually an arithmetic function. I think it's one of these. But let's just use truncate for now. And then I'm going to actually, since this is a new variable, click on type and label. Label here is just going to be, let's just call it class or course average. Course average. Yeah. You can name it whatever you want to, but that's just, once again, it's just a label. So click continue, make sure that's numeric, click continue, and then click OK here. And look at that, we got a brand new variable and we didn't even go to variable view. Now you see we got decimals on there. Normally you would actually want those decimals, you know, because it's an average. But let's just go ahead and take them off just to be consistent. And there you go. So he failed, he got a C, did anybody get an A? This must have been a really hard class, or the professor was just terrible. Like you got somebody getting a 83, then a 3, then a 72, then a 82, you know what I mean? Like what kind of class was this? That's not important. Anyway, looks like nobody really got that good of a score, right? Now, let's see, what am I doing here? Frequencies. Okay, before I go further, actually, what we're going to do later is correlations, right? So in order to do that, first I want to have some way to correlate something. Let's say I wanted to say, is the student's score, is there a correlation between the student's class score, right, the average, and how many hours per week they studied, right? If somebody studied between 5 to 8 hours a week, I would expect them to get a decent score. Especially if they did like 8 hours, that'd be pretty good score, right? Per week. If somebody studied 0 to 4, I wouldn't expect them to get that good of a score. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to variable view, and let's make a new variable. We're going to call it hours. This will also be numeric, no decimals. I'm going to call this, look at that, my labels got messed up. I don't know how that happened. I think it's because all the copying and pasting I was doing. We'll go back and fix that. But first, let's just call this hours studied per week. So this would be something that they would report themselves. And let's go ahead and just change these really quick. So this was test 1 average. This was test 2 average. Sorry, this was test 3. This was midterm. And these aren't averages, these are scores. Ooh. Yeah, always check your stuff after you're done, because sometimes, stuff happens. So, total test average. I think we just called this final score. Yeah. Okay. Course average. Hour study per week. Okay, good. We're not going to worry about missing values for average, of course. At least not. Yeah, we're not going to worry about that. In hours, let's just not worry about missing for now. And I'll show you the significance of that when we finally do our when we do these like mean and median and mode and stuff like that. But for now, let's not worry about it. And hours is going to be let's just use scale. What the heck? Alright. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go back to compute variable. So we're back in data view, and we're going to go to compute variable. Okay. Here we're going to type hours. And over here, now check this out. Let's say somebody got above a 60. All right. Let's say a 60 was a passing grade. Really it's like a D usually, but let's just say it was a passing grade. So, if somebody got a 60 or above, I want to say they study 5 to 8 hours per week, or 5 to 10 hours, right? If somebody got from, less than that, then they study 0 to 4. So this is when we would go down here and click on this if thing, because now we're going to do some conditionals. So, and you see, I already kind of did it. Anyway, let's do it again. AVG, so if average is greater than or equal to, and you can always click these little things down here if you don't want to type, is greater than or equal to 60, then you just click continue. So this will only happen if this is satisfied. So, whoops, what I want to do is I want to select a random number. So let's go back to random numbers, uniform. I want a random number between 5 and 11. Yeah, let's do 8. So we're going to go 9. So between 5 and 8 hours. All right. And we're going to truncate again, because I don't want, all these weird decimals and stuff like that. So watch what happens now. Let's click on OK. And would you look at that? You see, it didn't do anything for values that were less than 60. Well, for the rest, it put a number in there between 5 and 8. And there you go. Now we have to do the rest of them. Now, I'm not sure if you can do else in SPSS. I'm still learning some of the scripting language. I believe you can, because I've been Googling around and I've seen people typing in what looks like actual like functions like you would do in a programming language. But for now, let's just satisfy the other clause by clicking if again. And here we're just going to say less than 60. And now we want to go from 0 to 4. So don't forget to put 5 in there. And then click OK. And now we have the rest of our values. So we have a complete project now. All the data has been entered. So now we can do some analysis. So let's go ahead and, first of all, we want to look at frequencies. So we want to see a class distribution, right? Let's say we want to see how people did on T1 on the test 1 score. Oh, that's another thing I forgot to mention. If you highlight these variable names, it'll show you the label. So that's pretty cool, huh? Like if you just forget what that was. Hours, I forgot. Did I do for hours? See, I don't know why it's doing that. Might just be a problem with SPSS, but what did I say it was? Hours studied per week. Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and do some frequency distributions. Why don't we? So we're going to go to Analyze. And then we're going to go to Descriptive Statistics, Frequencies. Now we're going to put 2 variables in here. Actually, just 1 variable, because we want to know how people do on test score number 1. All right. Let's click on Statistics up here. And I was doing this before, so yours probably looks like this. I'm going to go ahead and click off everything. But Central Tendency, click Mean, Median, Mode, because we want to see what those are. Mode is just the what number appears most frequently. Median is what's the middle number. Like if you lined all the numbers up from smallest to largest, what's the middle number? If there's 2 middle numbers, in other words, if it's an even number, then you would average the 2 numbers in the middle. And the mean is just the arithmetic average of all the numbers. What SPSS does actually is if there's more than 1 mode, it'll report the smallest mode. So like if you have 5 5s and 5 8s, it'll show you 5. And then we also want to know the standard deviation. Standard deviation, in the simplest way to put it, is the tightness of the data. If you have this huge standard deviation, then that means the numbers are just so spread apart. Like you had somebody get 100, and then you had like somebody get a 1, and everybody was just kind of like spread apart. If you have a very tight standard deviation, very small standard deviation, that means everybody's sort of like bunched up together, like the scores were. And we also want to know skewness, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I actually have another picture I want to show you to explain what that is. And let's just go ahead and click continue here. Let's go to charts. Now yours is going to say none. What you want to do is click on histograms, and then click on show normal curve on histogram, and then click continue. Format, don't worry about this, just make sure it looks like mine. This should be the default anyway, but just make sure it looks like that, and then click continue. And make sure this says display frequency tables, and then click OK. And there you go. That was pretty quick, huh? Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. Remember I told you if something was missing, it would have accounted for it. This N, that's all that really means. It's just saying, hey, how many scores were there? How many people or how many values were there? There were 30 valid values. In other words, there were 30 values that weren't -1, right? If something was -1, it would show up here. It would say, oh, you had 3 missing or 4 missing or something like that. Now the mean score, the class average was a 49. Ouch. That's not good. That's really not good. The median was a 43 and the mode was 42. Standard deviation was 27.444 and skewness. Now, this is where I'm going to show you this whole skewness thing. This thing looks like it is positively skewed, and I'm going to show you what that means. So take a look at this picture. All right. Now, I got this on the internet. I wish I can give credit, but it looks like it comes out of a textbook, so I don't even know what textbook it was. But yeah, I didn't make this picture, so I'm not taking credit for it. I don't really know who made it, but anyway, what I wanted to show you was this. It looks like here, the mean is greater than the median, and the median is greater than the mode. Which means it looks sort of, when we get the histogram, when I show you the histogram, it's going to look something like this. And this is what they call positively skewed. In other words, if this is the test score, let's say the x-axis is the test score, right? So this up here would be like 100, and this would be a 0. And if the y-axis was the number of people who got that score, right? Then what this would mean is that somebody way out here, like one person, got 100 or a really high score. Most people didn't score too well, right? So even if I didn't show you this this histogram here, or this curve, right? This is what they call a curve. If I didn't show it to you, and all you saw was this, if you saw these three numbers, then you would know right away that this is a positively skewed distribution. In other words, somebody messed up the curve, basically, more than likely. I mean, the degree of the way it was positive skewed is actually not much. It's 0.096. So it's roughly, it might look more like this actually, because these aren't that far apart. 49, 43, and 42. So it's actually going to look almost like a bell curve. It will be a perfectly normal distribution, or a perfect bell curve. They call this a bell curve if the mean, median, and mode are exactly the same. And I think in this case it would also, the standard deviation would just be 1 for every single quartile. They call these quartiles. But yeah, I'm not going to get into that in this video. We'll do that stuff later. But yeah, I just wanted to show you what this is. If you see something like this, right, then that means it's negatively skewed. In other words, most of the class did pretty well, but somebody didn't do too good. Now keep in mind, these are just numbers. If this means, if I'm not doing scores, if I'm doing likelihood to have cancer, right, and this person got 100, that's not good. You know what I mean? Like, this is really not good, right? Or if I'm doing something else like basketball ability, you know, this is Michael Jordan. Everybody else is over here somewhere, you know. I don't know. I mean, it's all numbers. You can't, just because it's a high number doesn't mean it's, you know, a good thing. But anyway, that's pretty much obvious. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful. I'll put a link to this picture in my description box at the bottom, so you can have access to it. But yeah. So okay, and this thing right here, this is just telling you what they call cumulative percent. So all it's doing is it's saying 12. Who got a 12? How many people got a 12? One person, right? So we're up to 6.7% of the of this thing. So if this was all if this was 100% of the scores, right? We're counting for all the scores. Then this is just saying 6.7% of the class got a 12 or below. And I mean, you can go all the way down. You can say 70% of the class got a 64 or below, right? And this comes in handy when you start doing standard deviations and stuff like that. And as you can see here, 2 people got a 42, 2 got a 43. That's all this stuff means. And eventually you just get to 100%. So if somebody said, well, I'm in the 93rd percentile, that means they got an 85. Um, yeah, they pretty much just got an 85. If they're in the 93.3 percentile, then they did better than the rest of that class except for whoever got this score. Um, yeah, so that's that. Now for the final part, the histogram. As you can see, it sort of does look like this. You got a couple outliers, like this, this guy right here, this one person, not really an outlier, but pretty much. Um, it looks like most people somewhere around the middle. This thing right here, this remember when I said I told SPSS to show the normal curve distribution? That's all this is right here. If I can take that out if I want to, and actually I'm going to show you some stuff here. I'm going to show you how to edit this. So all you got to do is double click on it, and then a new window pops up, and this is SPSS's chart editor mode. And what you do is you click on any element in this chart. Let's say I wanted to like histogram. That's kind of pointless. Like I know it's a histogram, right? Let's say I want to change the name of that because I want to produce this. I want other people to see it. So I would click on that, and now you see it would highlight. So go ahead and double click on it, and the window pops up. And here you can actually change the height of the, well, technically this would change the height of the entire chart. And also the width. If you maintain aspect ratio, all that means is if I change the height, the width should change as well. So the aspect from the height to the width will remain the same. So it won't look like it's too long or too skinny or too fat or something like that. So let's just say I want to make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, see that? But let's just click on it one more time. Here I just want to change the name, so don't double click. And okay, never mind. Yeah, double click. And here I want to change the name. How do I change the name? I did it in my last video. I mean, when I was practicing, I just forgot how to do it. Wait a second here. Oh, okay, here we go. Okay, looks like you gotta click on it, and then you click on it again some kind of way, and now I can change it. Yeah, anyway, sorry about that. So we're gonna call this John's math class test 1 scores distribution or something like that. Then you just click off of it and it'll change that. I think did I double click on it? What did I do? Okay, it looks like I double clicked on it, and that's how you do it. I don't know how I got that other window to pop up then. Okay, if you double click, this pops up. If you click and then click again, then you can edit it. So it's I guess it's it's not a double click, it's like a click, pause, click, something like that. You can figure it out. Probably better than I can. Anyway, so that's how you change that. I mean, you can change pretty much anything. If you click on something to highlight it, let's say down here, it goes from 0 to 100 and it increments it by 20, right? So just click on any of those numbers and then click it again, and this window pops up. Click on scale. Now it's all set to auto right now, which is actually pretty good. I actually like the way SPSS did it for me. But let's just say increment. So take off auto, and I don't want to increment it by 20. I want to do it by 10. Then just click OK, and you see there's more scores here. And actually, maybe that's even better. Yeah. So you can change the max and the min. You know, you can have it set up however you want to make it more visually appealing. So it makes more sense for people that, you know, that aren't statistics people. You know, they might just want to see the graph. You know, so yeah, I mean, you can change pretty much anything. You can change the colors of these ugly brown bars. Let's say I want them to be blue or something. Something a little more, yeah, friendly, I guess. That brown is just kind of you can change the way the lines look, all kinds of stuff. You can change the end, like if I don't want that, the end of the bar to look like that. Can make it round, I guess. Anyway, yeah. So that's frequencies. And I hope that explains. It even reports here the mean, the standard deviation, and how many people were part of the study. So that's that. You can change this tool. You can change the name here, change the name here, all kinds of stuff here. And if you wanted to print this, I think you can just print it from this. Yep. You can export. So if you right click on that, you can export. You can export it into a doc file, or HTML, PDF, all kinds of stuff. So there you have it, distributions, or frequencies rather, and also histograms. So the last thing I wanted to do was correlations. So I'm going to minimize this, and I want to see if there's a correlation between the number of hours studied and the average. Now, I'm going to tell you right now there will be a correlation just because I set it up to be that way. Like remember when I was doing that 5 through 8 thing and all that kind of stuff. So there should be a correlation if I did that correctly. So what we're going to do is, first of all, I just want to see a graph. So let's go to Graphs, Chart Builder. This little thing comes up. It's just telling you, hey, make sure your stuff is good before you try to graph it. Just click OK. Now, okay, this is from last time I was working on it. But let's say when you first begin, it's actually not going to look anything like I have. What you want to do is go down to Scatter Dot, because you want to make a scattergram. Because that's the best, in my opinion, a scattergram is the best, or scatter plot, or whatever they call it, is the best way to show correlations. So let's go ahead and click on the simple one. So click and drag and put it up there. And then this little thing will pop up. Now we need something to put on the x-axis and something to put on the y-axis. On the x-axis, let's put hours studied. On the y-axis, we're going to put course average. Right? Go ahead and just leave this stuff alone. Just make sure it looks like mine. Make sure that's value, and everything else just looks like mine. You can pause the video to so you can look at your screen and then look at mine. Okay. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, element properties is just what this window is. So yep, that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and click OK. And voila. This looks like a correlation to me. Yes, indeed. It looks like a strong positive correlation. And I guess I'll explain that. Actually, you know what? I'll do it right now. Let's do it. So we don't actually see the correlation here. This is just saying, hey, if somebody studied 8 hours per week, that person also either got a 70 or looks like somewhere like a, I don't know, 68. You know, they got some pretty good scores. You know what I mean? So almost imagine like there's this this linear line just kind of going up this way, right? And these numbers are just kind of they kind of fit that line. Like they're just kind of almost as if the numbers themselves are kind of following that line. You know what I mean? So if I continued, if I kept going up this way, you know, you would just keep seeing numbers kind of huddling around the line. If these dots were just like all over the place, right, then that would be no correlation at all. Or let's say there was a line going this way, right, and it looked like this, but it was the other way. Like the numbers, I mean the dots were just kind of huddled around it like this. They would call that a negative correlation. But I'm going to show you that stuff right now. So I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go to Analyze, Correlate, Bivariate, because we have 2 variables. And our variables are hour study per week. It doesn't matter what order you put them in either. So you can do this first and then this. It doesn't matter. Options. Leave that stuff alone. No, don't worry about options. Just make sure it looks like mine. And make sure this looks like mine too. So do Pearson correlation, two-tailed flags, significant correlations, and then click OK. So this is the math behind this. And it looks like, yes indeed, there is a positive correlation, a very strong, I wouldn't say very strong, but pretty strong positive correlation. I say strong because the closer a number is, the closer this, what they call a correlation coefficient, the closer this is to 1, the stronger it is. To 1 or -1. The closer it is to 0, then it's weaker. It's a weaker correlation. So at 0.665, that's pretty strong. I would say that's pretty strong. It's not. I think it has to be a 0.7 to be considered strong. I can't remember if a 0.65 or a 0.7 was like the threshold for where you could say, hey, this is a strong correlation. But hey, the two-tailed thing that I put in there is telling me, hey, yeah, there is a significant correlation. So SPSS pretty much tells us that. And I guess I should explain how to read this. All it is I can put as many variables in there as I want to. Actually, I just put 2. I think if it's bivariate, I think you have to put 2. You might be able to put in more if you use one of those other functions. But anyway, I'll just explain at least what this means. Of course, this is 1 because if I'm comparing the variable to itself, this would just, if both of these were hours per week, then it would just be a straight line just going up like that. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead. I'll show you that. So let's go ahead and go to Chart Builder. And here I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to do hours studied per week. I'm going to put that on this axis as well. Then I'm going to click OK. And look at that. It's a perfect linear line, right? Don't worry about because it keeps track of all the stuff you did before. So don't worry about if you're going to delete something or not. It's all there. And now I'm going to do what I did before. I'm going to do correlation bivariate hour study per week, and that's the only one I'm doing. Actually, you have to do more than one. So yeah, whatever. It's not going to let you just do one. Let's look at the output again. So that's why this is 1, right? Because it's a 1-to-1 correlation, basically. Like anytime that this was 6, this was 6. Anytime this was 8, this was either a 68, 69, or 70 or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So the closer, if it looks like this, then that's a perfect strong 1 positive correlation, 1-to-1 basically. And these are always going to be identical, and these will as well. And n, once again, that's just the number of samples. Sig two-tailed, that's just how SPSS figures out if something is the significance, 2 tails of the correlation. It's just telling you, hey, this is the function that we use to figure out if it was significant or not. And there's like this criteria for that. It's all mathematical and stuff. You don't have to worry about that. There's a lot of those ways to figure out if something's significant or not. But yeah, that's correlations. And I think I pretty much just covered everything. You can edit this too. I mean, if you don't like the way that looks, just double click on it. And pretty much the same thing we did last time. You can change the way these dots look. Like I actually do want to fill them up with something. I want them to be blue. I mean, you can pretty much change anything you want. I can put a title up here, I think. Or maybe not. I'm pretty sure you can. You just gotta just play with it. Just play with it. You can even stretch this, I guess. But yeah, there you go. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, so I think this is a good place to end the video. I covered all the topics I planned on covering, and I hope this was helpful to somebody out there. You know, maybe just one person just sitting there trying to figure out SPSS, just starting, don't know what they're doing. I at least showed you the most basic stuff you would do with a statistics software program. And pretty much any kind of study you do, you're going to work with correlations, you're going to work with histograms, mean, median, mode, that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and yeah, I really appreciate you watching it actually too. And yeah, have a great day. Peace out.